Hello everybody, it's the Mighty Glue Stick. This is AJ and I'm coming at you with another monster series by popular demand. I'm going to be covering giants. Giants, well, boy, they're the bedrock of Dungeons and Dragons. Really, whenever you talk about a mythical story and you say back when giants strode the earth, well, in Dungeons and Dragons that's a literal reality. They set the starting point of history, if you will. Before then, it's a time of myth and legends where only dragons and mind flayers sort of left ruins in the deep, dark places of the world or on the highest peaks. And then along came giants, giants being the first races to walk the whatever world you're basing your game on. So in fifth edition Dungeons and Dragons, this is canon. This is the law of the land. That dragons and giants were the very first intelligent peoples. They were contemporaries, and they had a massive falling out and fell into war, so vicious and violent and ongoing that it decimated their populations to the point where the other races basically took over. And then along came dwarves and elves, and later on the younger races such as the humans and the halflings and things. So, what is a giant and what is not a giant? You'll see in the monster manual that several creatures in there, quite a few creatures, have the listing of giant, but some of them are giant kin and some of them are not. Most of them are giants, but the exceptions are, and this one's a bit contentious because they don't actually list the size of the creature, but specifically, but the Empyrean are the offspring of celestial beings, and they can be giant-sized, but they are not giant kin. The Etin, although technically it is a giant, it's not related to the giants. It's actually the product of a curse. This was from some orcs messing around with Demogorgon and ending up swollen to giant size with a mutation of two heads. So they're technically orcs, not giants. Next up is the Oni, or the Ogre Mage. They're not related to ogres and they are not giant kin. And the last one is trolls, which can grow to giant size but are not giant kin either. They're an entirely different kettle of nasty. So what does that leave us? That leaves us with the Cyclops, the Ogre, the Hill Giant, the Fomorian, the Stone Giant, the Frost Giant, the Fire Giant, Cloud Giant, and Storm Giant. I believe that's one. Yes. Yeah. Now, hill giants and ogres are much of a muchness. The hill giants are you could say that they're the full-sized giant, whereas the ogres are just their idiot offspring cousins. They're both very, very stupid. They've got an intelligence of 5, so you can have a conversation with either of them really. And the Cyclops are an interesting case because they are the offspring of the deities of the dragon pantheon. The giant pantheon. And here's the interesting thing about giants, right? Giants don't really define themselves by their intelligence. Intelligence isn't a big factor in their civilization. It's kind of built stupid robust, you know? And that's an interesting thing and also dexterity isn't a big high priority for them either. But strength they're all about size and strength. They have dominated their way physically, powerfully through many thousands of years in the Dungeons and Dragons world. It served them well, and it's all they've ever needed and all they ever will need. However, the very top of their hierarchy is dominated by the Storm Giants and Cloud Giants, and they are very smart. They are magic users. They are equal or not better than your average human in intelligence. Particularly the Storm Giants. They're typically smarter than your average peasant. Yeah. So, what is this hierarchy of the giants? They call it the Ordning, and it's an unspoken sort of thing. It's a class system. It's a social hierarchy and a racial hierarchy that they have. So it goes top of the rung is the Storm Giants, followed by the Cloud Giants, Fire Giants, Frost Giants, stone giants, then probably the fomorians, but they're a special case. They're not really part of the Ordning per se. Then the hill giants and ogres. Yeah, and then probably the bottom of the rung, even though they're not giants proper, they might even include Ettins. I don't know. I wouldn't really. Anyway, Fomorians are an interesting case because they are fey giants that used to be really beautiful. They were like Empyreans themselves, titans, if you will. Unfortunately, they fell to very foul deeds, and they came a cropper of the Fae, and the Fae cursed them horribly in a curse which has resounded through the ages and is passed on through their bloodline, which leaves them horrible, warped, twisted individuals whose outside is as twisted as their hearts. But they are still proper giants, so they have a place in the Ordning if they so demanded. Anyway, so giants, you'll only find their monuments and things in the very most remote places in the world where it hasn't really been disturbed a great deal, or they haven't been picked clean by other civilizations using the cut stone to build their own structures. And they're the most ancient structures that can be found beside dragon structures, if any, or mind flayer structures, which may still exist. Because mind flayers have that timey-wimey thing, so they've always been there. Yeah, but otherwise they form the bedrock of the very first sort of ruins that that are around. So they're the very lowest structures underneath the piled up of eons of detritus of civilizations that have come after. And giants did epic deeds. So if you're delving into the ruins of giants, you've delved very deep indeed, and you may be releasing horrors which have not walked the earth since the time of the Dawn War. Because the giants saw the Dawn War. They were around immediately after it. So their legends and written and oral lore includes legends of the very formation of the universe itself, the D&D universe, that is. So their written and oral traditions are extremely strong, extremely rich, and they have lasted for thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of years. They are older than elves and dwarves, and they once ruled the entire world. The entire world was theirs. Probably other worlds as well, since they're just after the time of the Dawn War. And they also saw the coming and the going of the Mind Flayers as well. So they'll know the history of the Gith, and they'll know the history of dragons, and they'll know all sorts of stuff about the world that other races they have no idea because they just weren't there. They have no concrete knowledge of it other than what they've picked out of dust and things. But the giants were alive and have passed down the knowledge of those times themselves. The kicker is, of course, most giants are too stupid to care. And only the storm giants and cloud giants, maybe the fire and frost giants, would have some sort of written record of it. Stone giants in particular would have carvings and things telling these stories, hieroglyphs and lithographic pictures and things like that they have in any sort of structures that they build. Of course, they won't tell you a single thing about them because they're very secretive. And that sort of runs true for all of the giant races that are quite intelligent. They just are aloof. They've seen it all. They're a bit jaded about the world, and they stick to their own affairs. They don't really have a lot to do with the younger, more upstart races because they're just underfoot rats, really. I mean, if you think about it, here we are, giants, for just for argument's sake. We're giants. Our civilization has been around since long before any other race picked up its first hammer and built its first hut. And you've got all these races around you which are tiny, kind of feeble, and they seem to just rise up and fall rapidly all the time. Aside from maybe the elves and the dwarves at least build structures that last, but the elves build things out of trees and things, they just disappear over time. And although their lifespan is measured in centuries, they are a fleeting civilization that has risen and fallen, really. It's fallen into decline, whereas the giants are still there. So elves are just another sad example of that. All mortal races will fall. All the smaller races aren't fit to rule the world that the giants once had as their own, and giants do consider it their world, and they kind of work towards the idea that one day the world will return to them, although it's an increasingly retreating target that they seem to. It's a vain sort of romantic quest of theirs to retake the world, but they're not really seriously going to do it. Things are as they are, and they're relatively happy with it. They've lasted thousands and thousands of years as they are. They've weathered all sorts of storms and upheavals, gods and monsters, wars and famines and plagues and everything that the world has to throw at them. And their system has lasted that time, so they're not going to change it anytime soon. And that is a feature that runs all the way through the giants, that they are what they are. They don't need to be anything else. They don't need to strive and reach and build like all the other races, because they've been there, they've done that, it didn't work, they don't need it, they just need to survive, and they're doing that quite well. So in this oncoming video series, I will be covering all of those individual giant races and non-giant races that I just talked about, and also getting into the nitty-gritty of what their cultures are like, how they impact the D&D world, what it's like living on a world with giants, and yeah, how it all sort of fits together. So stick with me, and if you like this idea, please give me a like button, and give me some comments down below of what sort of giant you want to hear about first, and what you want to know about giants. What confuses you about giants? How would you like to use them in your game? What do you need to know? Just let me know, and I'll blather on about it to your heart's content. Thanks for watching.